Hello, in this video we are going to see details of OAuth 2.0, how this authorization framework works. So this is described in the RFC 6749 and this is the official abstract which is coming from the RFC. So it says that OAuth 2.0 is an authorization framework, and what it enables a third party application to obtain limited access to the HTTP service, okay, meaning RESTful APIs, either on behalf of resource owner uh, uh, or by allowing third party application to obtain access on its behalf. So basically this is a definition which is good if you know all the terminologies which are used in OAuth 0. So we will revisit this definition a little later, but for now let's see the basics. So OAuth, so we have to enable access of a resource or access of an API. To make it simple, let's say access of an API to a third party application. So let's say that a user is using a third party application. Okay, this is the boundary. The user is using this third party application which is providing him joke of the day every day on a mail. Now this user is very happy with the service of joke of the day and he wants to provide the same service to all the friends which he is having in his contact list. Let's say in the Gmail contact list, whatever contacts are there, he wants to share the same joke of the day to these users as well. So how can he share this? So one way is that he can type all the passwords in this application which is here, and thereby all the email IDs here, and by typing all the email ID, this application is going to have the email IDs, and this application can now send emails to these also, and to this user also the emails can be sent. But this is one approach, not a very good approach, very cumbersome approach. The second approach is that this user provides the email ID and the password of his account to this application which is here. This is, from security point of view, this is not a very good approach, but this was used in the past. Believe me, it was used in the past, wherein we are providing the credentials, our own secret credentials, to the third party server so that they can use those credentials to get a contact list or some other service from this server. Okay, that's the second approach. Now this approach is also this is also full of multiple security issues. So what is OAuth? That's this is the problem statement. We have the resources, we have these APIs which are there, and we want this third party application, we want to authorize this third party application to use these APIs. Okay, how can that be done? That is primarily what OAuth is. So this is the second approach which I told. Username and password of Gmail is being shared to the client application here, and the application leverages the same username and password to get the contact list, and thereby it is enabled to send emails to these users, all the contacts also. And like I said earlier, this is full of security issues. You can't trust this application. Let's say I trust it today, but let's say tomorrow I don't trust it, then there is no feasibility of revoking the username and passwords which I had already given them to this application. It was given and it is with the application, and it can use it for any malicious purpose. So that's a password anti pattern, and this is the exact problem with which OAuth is going to help us solve. So now before we little deeper, let's see what all the OAuth terminologies are there. So resource owner, this user who is basically owning his email ID or the APIs or the resources which are there. So he or she is owning these resources, and thereby he or she is called the resource owner. User agent is basically the way it interact with the application, and the interaction could be either with a browser or with a mobile device, or with a thick client application. So all these things are basically the user agents. The client is the application which wants to leverage these resources. Okay, these APIs it wants to leverage. So this application which is here is basically the client application, and a resource server is the server which is facilitating all these APIs. Okay, in this case the email list, distribution list of email IDs. So this is being facilitated by this server, and thereby it is called resource server. Now when we talk about OAuth, there is a new server which comes, which is called authorization server. Okay, and this is what is going to authorize the third party application to use the resource server, thereby the name authorization server. Okay, and we have like paradigms where authorization server and resource server can be co-located on the same server machine as well. Now, the OAuth, I think it is very, very clear to you why OAuth is required, but still this example is like the internet is fraught with this example, and it's a very basic example and gives lot of sense on why OAuth is used with a real life example of a hotel. So let's say in a hotel, a visitor is visiting. So what does he or she does? The first thing they do is they go to the reception, and this is the place where the authorization happens. Okay, when we say authorization, they will check your ID credentials, and what they issue you, they will issue you a card. So basically this card is your token. This is your access token. Okay, so once you have got this card, this access token, once you have this access token, now you can visit any of the facilities within the hotel. Now you don't have to give your details for authorization again. You already got an authorization token which is called our access token, and the same token can be leveraged in multiple facilities of the hotel. You can use it for your room, you present the token and use the service. You use it for the gymnasium, you use it for the breakfast, you use it for the pool. So authorization is given by the authorization server, which is this, and then these are the various resource servers. So resource servers, when we say resource servers, these are basically the APIs which are there, which you want to leverage. Okay, and you will be presenting it with the access token, and that access token will give you the authority, or it will authorize you to use the service. Now let's go through some of the key terms which are there in OAuth. It is, mandatory to have understanding, very clear understanding of these key terms. So let's see what these key terms mean. So scope. So scope is basically this entails basically the application's access to the user's account. So what kind of access for the user account this application can have. So an application can request one or more scopes. Okay, so it can be multiple scopes which can be requested by the application, and whatever scope you are requesting, so you will be having a pop-up screen. You means the user will be having, or the resource owner will be having a pop-up screen wherein he will authorize that, okay, I authorize this application to use my contact list. Okay, so that is with the help of scope we are saying that what authorization we are doing. So some examples of authorization scopes is basically OpenID, profile, email, and there is like contacts, and it can be your custom scopes also. You can define as many scopes as possible. So scope is what it is giving now. Just to say in simple words, it is the permissions which are being granted on the resource server. So those permissions are basically given by the scope. Scope defines the permissions which the client is asking for, and the user can approve or deny this request. Now the second thing which we see is claims. So claims are the information asserted about a subject. So subject is user. So the claims is basically a key value pair which will give you the claim name and the claim value. And these claims you can see in the JWT tokens or the JOT tokens. Okay, like name, nickname, picture, okay, issued, issuer. Okay, so all these things are basically your claims. Okay, and then let's see grant type. So grant type is we have different authorization flows which are possible. Okay, and these authorization flows are basically listed here. So these are the various grant types which are there: authorization code grant, client credential grant. We'll see these in detail. I'll in the next video probably I'll share how exactly these works. these work, but this is what is a grant type. You can have different kind of flows for getting the authorization token, okay, or getting the access token. And these are the different paradigms or different flows which are possible for getting the token to use the resource on the resource server. Okay, so that's what is grant type. Next, we see access token versus ID token. So before we see this, we have to know the difference between authorization. So till now we were discussing all about authorization, that the user is authorized to use the resource server. So authorization is the security process that determines a user or services level of access. So basically it is saying whether it is allowed for the client application to access a resource or not. So this is authorization. But if you want to get the identity of somebody, okay, that is authentication. So authentication is to verify that someone or something is who they claim to be. Okay, so authentication verifies the identity of the user and authorization determines their access rights. Now, the other thing which we have to see here is, till now we were discussing only about OAuth, and there is a thin layer on top of OAuth which is called OpenID, and this is meant for authentication. OAuth is primarily only for authorization, and then there is a thin layer which is called OpenID, which facilitates authentication. Just to read the definition, OpenID is a simple identity layer on top of OAuth 2.0. It allows clients to verify the identity of the end user based on the authentication performed by the authorization server. Okay. So now we see access token and ID token. So ID token is basically when we have the scope of OpenID, or when we are doing the OpenID, then we'll be getting ID tokens also along with the access token. So ID token will authenticate us, the user, it will authenticate. The ID token is a security token granted by the OpenID provider that contains information about the end user. Okay, and access token, we have seen it in the previous slides also. This is the token which authorizes us to use the resource server. Now, this is the another important thing, JWT tokens. So whenever we are seeing access tokens and ID tokens are mandated to be JWTs. Access tokens are not mandated, but still, I mean, now it is a norm that both the access and ID tokens are JWT or JOT tokens. Okay, so a JWT is a safe way of claims transfer. So what JWT entails or contains is the claims. Okay, and it is a safe and secure way to transfer the claims. So if you read the JWT and if you decipher it, you are sure that it has come from the party and it is safe. Because why? Because there is a signature which is there which can verify that it has come from the party from where it is intended to come. So it contains three parts. One is the header, the payload, and the signature. And header is basically the type of token, which is JWT, and the signing in algorithm which is there. So like for example, it is the SHA 256 is what is being mentioned here. Then claim information. So this is what is the main thing which we are sending with the help of JWT, that this is the claims. So subject, name, admin. Okay, all these claims is basically what we want to transfer with the JWT, and signature is what is ensuring the integrity of the data which is there in the JWT, meaning that the JWT content is not modified. So it is containing what this is SHA 256. This is basically a hashing algorithm, and it is containing the hash of your base 64 encoded header, base 64 payload, and a secret. Okay, so to again simply reiterate it, it is a safe and secure way of transferring the claim information. And for access ID and access token and ID tokens, we use JWTs nowadays. Okay, so let's see authorization flow, and we will complete the video here with the help of this with the help of this authorization flow thing. So what happens here is we have a resource owner, the user. Okay, the user is the one, and this client is the application which wants to access some resource from the resource server. So it wants to access this information. So what it will do first is it will send the authorization request to the resource owner, which means a pop-up whether you want to grant the permission to use the email. If it says yes, I want to grant the permission to use the email, then the authorization grant shall be shared to the authorization server, and the authorization server will generate a token. And this token is basically the access token, and this token is henceforth used for accessing the resources or the APIs on the resource server, the protected resources on the resource server. Same is indicated here also. You have resource owner, okay, and this is the user agent, the browser, and then you have client, and a client is interacting with authorization server. It obtains the token, and it uses the token for further using the resources. Okay, that's succinctly what OAuth is all about. Thank you very much.